Hello, everybody. This is your host, Wayne Nix of Lookin for Good Cooking. And it's the Trinity Team back, baby. That's right. It's me, my wife, Dawn Nix and Lance Fields. And today what we're doing is Roux-ology. We're doing the study of Cajun cooking, but more specifically, the foundation of Cajun cooking. But before we get into that, let me introduce my wife, Dawn Nix. Babe, how you doing today?
Hi, I'm Dawn. I'm your co-host today. I'm working on running the cameras, getting anything that Wayne needs. And I'd also like to introduce our other guest. It's Lance Fields.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Dawn, Wayne, thanks for having me on today. It's good to be here and get my roux on, learning something today.
We have any shout outs to give in the audience right now? I know Nazim Beltran was wanting to check in with us.
He did, and so did Amy Keel and Kitty Drury, and of course we have Cheryl Deuce in the house. Let's see here, and rolling down for the moment. That looks like who has checked in. Tammy Cook said she'll be watching the replay later tonight, which we of course appreciate. I believe that Julie Caraccio is going to be in the audience. So for the moment, that is where we are.
All right. Well, for those of y'all who haven't seen our show, this is actually our third time being on the air. This is a live event right now, so if we drop the chicken, we're just going to wash it off and throw it back in the pot. Well, we don't plan on really cooking any chicken today. We're going to do with the foundations of pretty much our Cajun culture down here. It's roux. And, you know, what we're trying to do with our show, Looking for Good Cooking, is just promoting our products, places, the people, and the stories from our area. And I'm always asked every time I travel, you know, oh, you're from Louisiana, you must know how to cook well. And I hate to say it, but yeah, I'm from Louisiana, I know how to cook well. So everybody's always asking me about the roux and the gumbos, and what we want to do is just kind of go over some basics. And, you know, it doesn't have to be a one-stop, one-shop type of thing. You can have different types of appliances, different types of equipment. You can still do the same things. You got to remember, guys, this was created back in like the 1700s by the French. They didn't have all this stuff, right? You basically had one black iron pot, and that was it. And it was created because they were trying to hide rancid meat. Maybe you don't want to know that, but that's pretty much where these stocks and these things came from. And I know the Cajuns kind of threw another twist in everything, because for stocks, normally you skim the fat off everything, you take out those big ingredients, but they thought that was a waste of money, so they left that in the pot. But so we're about to get started. Anybody have any specific questions right now? Babe, do you want to say anything? You good?
Yeah, how do we spell roux?
Roux, R-O-U-X. How do you pronounce it? Roux, R-O-O, right? And trying to come up with some different commercials for the show. I mean, we thought about doing like a rude awakening. You know, talked to Michael Daniels, and he said, well, that would just be rude if you didn't do that type of thing. So, I mean, you know, we get a lot of support out there, and Michael Daniels has a little game show that he's starting out, and I look forward to seeing more of that, too. And I know Mia Voss and all those guys. They had a great panel today on Steven Sabowski's show, actually, with you know, Miss USA, and she was over in Baton Rouge, and that young lady, Erin, is pretty bright. So, I'm going to get started with some of these basic principles, and you guys just stop me. Anybody in the crowd, raise your hand, and we'll go over the basics. The first thing you need for a roux, right, is a good heavy cast iron pot. Well, it just needs to be heavy. And the whole point behind that is if you have a heavy pot, you're going to get an even heat distribution, okay? And if you have one of these little lighter pots and that type of stuff, you're going to burn the roux, and never burn the roux. So what do we want to stir it with? Well, that's the other thing. You may have heard of a gumbo spoon. It's like a spoon that's been cut off at the top, right? I actually left mine outside, so I'd have to go grab it because I do a lot of cooking outside. But you don't have to have it. You can use this little stir fryer. This little whisk works great, actually. And as you can see, I've used this spoon numerous times. And then what do we want to do for roux? Well, again, roux was created by the French, and they started with butter, right? So they would do butter, half flour. And that doesn't happen so much down here in the Cajun country because they didn't have access to that fresh butter. That's actually more French or more Creole. So the Cajuns was actually used oil, right? Typically back then it was either bacon fat or lard or that kind of thing, which is actually good because that's what you can coat your pot with before you set it up so it won't rust. But What I'm going to do today is kind of a little variation. I'm going to do some oil, but also olive oil.
So while you're getting that ready, Wayne, we had a question from Kim Boltman, and you kind of covered it when you were talking about the cast iron skillet, but or pot. She asked if cast iron is the preferred. She said specifically, is cast iron the preferred cooking vessel? And you explained why it needed to be something with a good solid pot. But do you find that cast iron works the best for roux?
Well, if you have a good seasoned cast iron pot, it will make a difference. How much of a difference? I mean, here's the thing. If you're just eating the roux, yeah. But by the time you start adding all these seasonings in there, the roux basically helps to perk up the rest of the seasoning. And also, are you using water, or are you using chicken stock, or are you using seafood stock? Everything that you put in, you're trying to build layers. So to answer the question, it just really needs to be a heavy pot. Oftentimes, I will use my coated cast iron pot, which I really love to cook with. It just doesn't work on this little induction oven here. Does that answer your question?
I believe it does.
Okay. So what I've done so far is, typically if you read the recipes, it will tell you it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Is it a 1-to-1 ratio? Well, not in my house. It's actually a little more flour than it is oil, because I don't like too much of an oily type of roux, right? So what I did is I mixed pretty much 3/4 cup of oil. Most of that, I just eyeballed it. Most of that is regular cooking oil, and the rest I put in some extra virgin olive oil, fresh cold pressed olive oil. And what I'm going to do now is heat my pan up to a medium high heat. And I forget who it was I was commenting on earlier in the stream when I told her that they have different stages of roux. So depending on who you talk to, you can hear like there's 3 to 4 stages of roux. The first one's a blonde or white, then a blonde, then kind of like a medium, and then a dark roux. Most of the time I'm using a medium peanut butter color consistency roux, and that really goes great with crawfish and things like that. But you can make a fricassee, but then you're going to have to add tomatoes. But you don't want to add tomatoes while you're making a roux, because then you're going to cook tomatoes. So
yeah, from my experience in watching Cajun cooking in person out in Cajun country, is typically for a gumbo, which is what most people associate a roux with, is usually that's a peanut butter color. Is what I hear is the best for gumbo is to get to that sort of peanut butter colored roux. Is that accurate? Would you say?
For a lot of people, yes. I like to let it get a little darker, almost like a chocolate color. I don't know if we're going to go that far down. And for a roux, it takes a good probably 25 to 40 minutes, depending on some various factors. Like one of the factors is this. If you have your flour, if it's been exposed to a lot of humidity, it may lose some of its thickening power. And that's another reason why roux were created, because typically you thicken sauces with like eggs or things of that nature. And what this does, it actually helps to thicken the pot, right? It gets everybody's belly a little full. So
so let me go back, since you just mentioned that. Julie Caraccio just asked if not making her roux in a cast iron pot was the reason that it didn't thicken. But you said that if your flour is exposed to extra humidity, that can also decrease the flour's ability to thicken in a roux. So it could be a couple of factors, apparently, right?
Right, and some of the things too, if you're adding water to it, if it's an extreme contrast in temperature, you're going to see things break up. And did she start her roux with an oil, or did she start it with butter? Right, so that's going to make a difference.
Let's find out.
For those that don't know, this whole show is going to be me stirring this pot, because that's how you make a roux, right?
What are some of the things that you can use a roux for?
Well, you know how we make crawfish étouffée on the last show? There's several ways to make that dish. Roux is basically a gravy too. That's kind of how I learned it from my mom, who was actually from the Carolinas. and she passed away at an early age, and that's what really got me interested was, and one of the reasons I really love food is because the way people would come around and comfort us, besides the humor and things of that nature, it would be, you know, through food. And I wanted to know, how did they cook this food? And that's exactly how I got my start in cooking. Plus, I knew it'd give me a good woman too. But yeah, I wanted to tell you that, you know, I went to see my friend Jeff Iver. And he's a good old boy from down the bayou. And we went to go see him because it was his 40th birthday. I think I told you about this the other day when we were going down there. Well, he wasn't there when I first showed up. And then about 10, 20 minutes later, after I was talking with his mama Tony, he comes in the house, he's smiling, idiot, right? I'm like, hey, brother, I said, what's going on? He's like, oh, I just got off a ticket. I said, just got off a ticket? He's like, yeah, man. He says, let me tell you what happened. He says, I was doing about 90 miles per hour, and then the deputy pulled me over. I said, oh, yeah? I said, what happened? He says, well, the deputy comes up to me. He sees me because he knows who I am. And he says, oh, Jeff. He says, you're speeding, man. You're doing 90 into 70. I need to see your license. He's like, man, I'm not speeding. He's like, well, I need to see your license. He says, well, I don't have my license. He's like, well, what about your registration? Is it in your glove compartment? I'm like, no, registration, I don't have any. It's not in my glove compartment. He's like, well, where's your wife? You know, can she attest to who you are and maybe give me some of your information? I said, nope. I said, my wife's in the trunk and I got a gun in my glove compartment. He says, whoa, 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 Jeff, hold on right now. So I'm going to call the sheriff. So the deputy goes back to the car, calls the sheriff. Hey, you know, Sheriff Harry, this is, you know, Deputy Brown, and I got my friend Jeff Ibert over here, and caught him speeding. He got his wife. He murdered his wife, threw her in the trunk, has a gun in the glove compartment. I need you to get down here right now. So the sheriff says, hold on, I'll be right there in a second. So woo, 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 woo. He comes just ablaze, right? He gets up to Jeff's truck and says, Jeff, what's this I hear? The deputy says you're in a little bit of trouble. He's like, hey, man, I don't know what he's talking about. He just pulled me over for no reason at all. He's like, well, Jeff, that's my deputy. He says he asked you for a license and you don't have it. He's like, I know what you're talking about. Here's my license right here. Well, what about your registration? He starts to reach for the glove compartment. The deputy grabs his little handle, you know, and about to pull out his little taser, do a little monkey report on him. And it's like, whoa, whoa, that's just my registration I'm going for, Sheriff. He's like, all right. Pulls out his registration. He says, now, Sheriff, now you see that deputy's lying about all that stuff. I bet you he told you I was speeding, too.
Oh, that I love a good Cajun joke.
All right, so check this out. I bought me some little paint sticks, and I don't know if you can see, but this is pretty much, you know, the first stage of a roux. If I was making like a little soup or something like that, I could probably stop it here. But you have to constantly stir, and I don't know if you can tell with the camera, but you see how it's almost like a thick cake-like consistency? That's pretty much how I like to do my roux.
All right, Wayne, we got a couple quick questions here. One is from Nazim Beltran. He said, can you use olive oil in a roux?
Yep.
And Cheryl Deuce wants to know, can you pre-make roux and store it for later? And if so, how long?
Well, those are some great questions, right? Because you can make, you know, roux in olive oil. But you have to take into consideration olive oil has a lot of flavor by itself, especially when you have that good, you know, Italian olive oil that Nazim probably has access to. So what I try to do is cut it to try and get some of that flavor out. And that's why I usually do half and half. And part of that's because I'm trying to eat healthier with the wife on the paleo meal. I kind of do a little partial paleo thing. And then Cheryl's question was about storing roux. Absolutely. In fact, that's what most people do. They will make this roux. In fact, that's what I'm doing today. I'm making this roux, and I'm going to put it in a jar and put it in my refrigerator. And I'll probably eat it within 7 to 9 days. And what is it? It's about 1 cup of roux to 3 quarts of, I would say, chicken stock, but 3 cups of water, wine, whatever Cheryl wants to use. She can use her white wine. That's fine. Again, it's to taste. And you know, towards the end of the roux, a lot of people, especially here in Cajun country, they'll throw in just some chopped up onions. They'll turn off the heat because the heat from the roux will continue to cook those onions, and it'll bring out a lot of great flavor. I'm trying to open my beer and not burn this at the same time.
I have a question for you. What was it? Oh, do you use roux for any dessert type dishes?
Well, dessert type dishes, not dessert per se, what you may be thinking, but we do have some French bread, because if you make a great bread and you put some roux on there, that's all you need, buddy. That's your dessert.
That's a little gravy po' boy.
Pretty much, yep.
Those are French fry po' boys are really popular over here in New Orleans. And when I tell people about them, they're like, well, that doesn't sound too delicious if they don't live here. But if you've never had a French fry po' boy smothered in gravy, you probably like bread, you probably like French fries, you probably like gravy.
Yeah.
It is not something that I would eat every day, mind you. Occasionally, there's nothing better than a sloppy French fry po' boy from a couple. Well, there's a lot of places around here that serve them. So it's kind of a standard thing. Y'all, do they serve French fry po' boys over in your neck of the woods?
Oh yeah, they got them down the road over there.
Yeah.
Old Time grocery store by the university has some great po' boys, and you know, those people, Lance, all I have to say is they're jealous, right? They're trying to bring you. It's what we call that crab in a barrel syndrome. You're getting up to the top. You're at the peak. You're the joyous place in Louisiana. You have access to all that food. They got to pull you back down, brother. So I'm here to keep you up.
Speaking of Louisiana food, y'all know that the Creole Tomato Festival is this weekend, right?
Yep. That's one of the things that we were looking at, not just the Creole Tomato Festival. You know, I might be a little ambitious by trying to want to promote every single event that we're having in Louisiana, but that really is the goal, is to pretty much showcase that we have an event almost every weekend in several cities. How do you make up your mind? I don't know. You can't split yourself, but maybe we can do some hangouts at several of these things, and that would be an interesting show, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, there's something, somebody did a little study on it and said there's some like 400 festivals, 430 festivals a year. So basically, there's almost a festival every day. Obviously, some of them are overlapping on the weekends, but we could pretty much every weekend somewhere in Louisiana there is a festival. Creole tomatoes, sweet potatoes, crawfish, shrimp. Music, everything, and then of course all the different foods are always highlighted at all the festivals too. So when people say that there's plenty to do celebrating the people, places, and food of Louisiana, we aren't kidding.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a lot of history to this state, and again, I was born and raised here, but my family is not a true blood or true bleed Cajun, is what they say. But that being said, I am an adopted Coonans, right? So I've learned a lot about them, and these people, you know, have been through hard times. They haven't had a lot of money, and it just goes to prove that they're some of the happiest people in the world because they know the importance of family. They know the importance of food, and like what we're doing, this conversation cooking goes on in people's houses throughout our state, right? And you know, with the advent of TV, the way it's taking us away from the dinner table, Dawn and I are actually tossing around another little idea. I don't know if Dawn wants me to say anything about that, but what do you think, babe?
Okay, Jan, you can tell them what we're thinking about.
Well, you know, we were watching TV the other day while we were eating supper, mind you, and I said, well, you know what would be great is if we had a show that we called the Digital Dinner Table, right? And what will we do? Nothing, just eat. Right? Basically, turn on a hangout and say, hey, come talk to us. You know, what do you want to talk about? The news? You want to, you know, you want to talk some politics? it really wouldn't matter. You know, do we want to record it or not? I wasn't really planning on recording it. I was really just saying, hey, I'm opening up my house to you guys if you want to come in, just like we do all the time, you know, for other events. What do you think about that, man?
I think it's great, and you could even do a spin-off business of that and provide a dining companion for somebody that's going out to dinner and they don't have anybody to eat with. They could just put their computer there, and while they're having dinner wherever they are, we can talk, and they would have somebody to converse with. So yeah, I think it's a great idea because it's eating. I mean, eating is such a social activity, and well, I don't personally mind eating alone. I don't want to all the time, but how sweet would that be if I had my laptop there and I'm sitting, you know, maybe I'm traveling or sitting in an airport somewhere, and we just get online, and while I'm sitting and eating, we just have a conversation, just kind of like what we're doing right now.
Right, and part of it, again, is just to show people the technology that's available to them at their fingertips for free. You know, and what better, the whole point of the internet was to connect people. It wasn't so you can say, oh, I have a friend in Africa, but you know, I never see them. The whole point of that was to really join people's hands and share the culture and to grow it as society. Now, since I'm mentioning society and culture, we had an interesting conversation again the other day with the local group in our area that's known as Field. Have you ever heard that?
No, what is it?
Field. Dawn, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Field is the Council for the Development of French in Louisiana, and it's based here in Acadiana. I think it was founded, I want to say, in 1968, and it's for the purpose of promoting French language and culture in Louisiana. Field is responsible for going out and recruiting teachers from other countries to come teach French in Louisiana. We have something called a French Immersion Project. There are certain, particularly elementary schools in Acadiana, that the children can go to, and every subject is taught in French, which I think is great. I didn't have that opportunity, but can you imagine going to school and learning science in French? And then you go to your math class and you learn your math in French. And I just think it's a great organization. They give scholarships. They offer people the chance to go, learn French, come back and teach it, and just perpetuate the French language and French culture in Louisiana.
Nice. Well, I think that's a great idea, and a lot of people watching do also. So with this little moment here, I'm going to pop in. Okay, Wayne, we have a question from Nazim. He wants to know what kind of beer you're using right there. Is that a local brew?
Actually, it's a Beta, right? Okay.
Yeah, I'll put it in the comments for us so that.
And I really like Abita's beers. I'm not a big drinker, but you know, I like things with flavor. In my younger day, I might have drank anything, but I'm a little more picky now. But they do it. They have Abita has some seasonal flavors, and that's what one of these is. I usually drink the amber. This is a strawberry lager, and actually it was Dawn who bought them. So
it sounded a little sweet. We had tried it at a Mardi Gras. So yeah, it's pretty good because everything is measured in terms of your drink. Is that right, Wayne?
Right. So how long does it take to make a roux? Well, people usually say 1 to 2 beers. Right? And if my dad was around, I'd show you his beers about this talk. Right? So, and not that it would take that long, it's just that's how much you'd finish in about 20 or 30 minutes.
So let me ask you a roux question since I'm able to see what you're doing there. So how much beer did you put in there, did you say?
Oh, I did not put any beer. The beer's all in me.
So wait, so then this leads to my question. I noticed that the roux changed consistency. It was kind of like peanut butter before, and now it's gotten creamier without adding anything else. So that's something to watch for, obviously.
Yep, that's actually one of the things you want to look for.
Okay.
Again, I've been constantly stirring because as soon as you stop stirring, you're gonna you're going to burn it. And what happens is the starches in there actually expand. And I'm no Alton Brown. I can't tell you all the, you know, the genomes and all this other stuff about it. I can just tell you it starts to emit this nutty flavor the browner it gets. At the earlier stage, it's more like a toasted bread. You know, if you were to say, you know, what does it taste or what does it smell like? Because right now it's smelling nothing but the nutty flavors coming up. Again, I'm a nutty guy, so maybe that helps. In fact, I grabbed some peanut butter just to show you that we should be close. Look at that. It's pretty good.
Can we get the overhead shot on the screen?
Alright, thank you.
Okay, Dawn. Yeah, there we go. Okay, wow, yeah, perfect.
Now, right now, it is a lot of people would stop because this is really pretty good. And you can take it to the side, and some people say to put it in a pan, like a flat pan, and to let it cool. Actually, if I was making a gumbo, I would do this all in one pot. So I would have my big old pot, which will probably be another show. And right now, you could throw some onions in there if you want to do like some smothered chicken, or you want to do some smothered pork chops. You can use this for the crawfish etouffee. Again, you'd put it off to the side and you'd let it cool. And I'm going to show you an even easier trick that Cheryl Deuce would probably love at the end of the show.
Okay, so now I want to go back and let's do a quick review of a couple things that I'm thinking of. So if I wanted to go in and do it, I would get my cast iron skillet. I would set the temperature to about what?
This one actually has a gauge. It should be medium to medium high. And that's one of the reasons I'm playing with this stove, is because I really haven't figured out the intricate details to it yet. This is saying about 300 in the pot.
Okay.
Now, I want to say this stage of a roux is about 380 degrees, if I have to remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But I can post that information a little later to be exact.
All right. And then the oil and the flour go into the pot at the same time.
Yeah. So in fact, there's several. Look, I've even been told you don't need to add oil until after you brown the flour.
See, that's how I learned to make it from Miss Virgie. She taught me to brown the flour a little bit first and put my oil in.
And I think that was Chef Paul Prudhomme that came up with that method for like commercial kitchens. And you just have to whisk real fast when you're bringing everything together. I haven't done it. I've also heard of people laying flour in a shallow dish and baking it in the oven and doing like a baked oven type of a roux. Again, I haven't tasted it. You know, to me it doesn't sound any easier.
Yeah.
And I'm always going for the easy route. And this is just something I can do. You know, with 10 days and me half asleep, just get up and start making a roux.
So another question from Julie Caraccio is, he wanted to know if you recommend a particular type of flour. I'm guessing all-purpose is probably the answer, right?
Yeah, and you know, somebody told me that somebody used to mix in some cake flour, and that's how this lady used to make her roux. You know, everybody has their little topsy-turvy secrets, but I'm just using some fresh all-purpose flour. It's not cake flour. It's nothing special. That is one of the things I was trying to play with at one point in time, but I didn't like how it was coming out. I need to get with that lady that does the copycat recipes, and maybe we can do one together.
Okay, and then what about your paleo option?
Paleo option? There's no paleo option. Tell me about your paleo option.
That's a
paleo option. Now, I did try to make this roux about 2 weeks ago, even before the other show, with a brown rice flour. And again, I'm not Alton Brown, so I don't know what all the temperatures are supposed to be. But it's kind of hard to just. It wasn't acting right, man. You know, when I was saying, "Hey, bro," I said, "You ain't acting right. You wasn't talking back to me." So yeah, I would taste it, and I kept going over that point. There's a fine line before it tastes good and then it's burnt. and I couldn't figure that out. So if somebody's out there in the audience and they know, that's good. But I also know, which I guess that kind of leads to the secret that I was going to show Cheryl and the rest of the world. There is another reason why gumbos are being made left and right in Louisiana. You want to know what that is?
I do.
It's not because chicken's any cheaper, I can tell you that, and pork keeps going up every week. But hold on, I'll show you. All right. Roux comes in a jar. This is reshots.
There you go.
Right?
So we've spent 30 minutes making a roux, or
basically boil your water and throw 2 tablespoons in there, or your chicken sauce, or your chicken gravy, whatever you want to say. And does it come out as good again? No, but yes, because the time you save, all you got to do is perk it up and jazz it up with a little bit of cayenne and a little bit of onion salt or whatever it is you may want to use.
and there are multiple brands. I was looking online to see what was available, and there are different brands. And I was just thinking back to our crawfish episode, and someone had asked about shipping crawfish, and I did find 2 sites that it's still possible. If you look on CajunBrocher.com, also Chez Francois Seafood is under cfseafood.com, and see if they are still shipping crawfish for you.
Yeah, we can put those links in at the end of the show.
And look, it's already for like 5 minutes over, I think, on the show. But again, it's pretty much constant stirring, and we're getting to a real critical point where I got to keep an eye on this because it's going to start turning more of a chocolate type color.
I'm going to zoom in, and you're just aiming for that final chocolate color?
I'm trying to get more of a dark chocolate color. So, but again, it's really it's whatever you prefer. Ooh, yeah, that burns. Just to let you know, don't stick your finger in the pot. Right? Hey, it's a live cooking show, man. So,
What's that little plaque there you have on the table next to your cooking area? What is that?
This right here?
Yeah, what is that?
And when I was in Boy Scouts, I got awarded the Louisiana Badge of Honor. No. Oh, that's a chopping table.
Oh, I thought that was a Mardi Gras throw.
Oh, no. No, that might whack somebody in the head. That hurt me. But I am a child of the Mardi Gras, so throw me anything. I'm going to attack Dawn's right. Maybe I should get some beads. See if she'll throw me anything. But,
Don't have any beads handy. They're still in the car.
yeah, how many beads do you have lying around the house, Lance?
I've narrowed it. What happens is, through years of experience, is I don't know, I keep a few here and there, but everybody shows up because we live close to the French Quarter, so a lot of people will use this as a home base when they're out having their festivities, and we end up with piles of dirty old Mardi Gras beads all over the place. And usually what I'll do is they have these people that will come around and recycle them, and they either make, I posted that picture from the coffee shop where they make art out of them, but then they also have people who wash them and reuse them, which they turn into projects for little charity projects and whatnot, and public service projects, but it keeps all the beads out of the landfill. And what is the joke about people's ceilings collapsing because they have so many pounds of Mardi Gras beads stored up in their attic or in their crawl space in the top of their house?
Yeah, Dawn's laughing because she's one of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, half of them's doubloons or whatever. How you pronounce them?
Doubloons.
Yeah.
So,
You gotta keep the pretty ones.
but Dawn's grandma lives down there in New Orleans, over there by the Cobbs. So y'all should go by and visit her. She'll welcome y'all in. But just be prepared to stay for about 4 hours, because she's gonna tell you about everybody that died, and you don't know who it is. But by the end of the conversation, you're gonna know all about them. So, but she's a nice woman. I really do like her.
Yeah. I'll go visit somebody in New Orleans.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to describe Mardi Gras to people. I mean, you could tell them about Bourbon Street, or anybody that hasn't been here or has only been and sort of done the typical things. But Mardi Gras is really a big family event. You get out, you get away from all the bars on Bourbon Street or wherever the chaos is, and everybody has their coolers. Sometimes you have a grill. Everybody's hanging out. You get your little troop together, and you watch the parade, and the kids are there. And a lot of people don't realize that it's not just all that Girls Gone Wild mess that they see on television. That it's a big family neighborhood get-together, and we just happen to do it on a really big scale.
Right. That crazy stuff, it's, to say it's relegated anywhere, it really is. It's down there on Bourbon Street, right? Because you try to show up on the other streets, you won't get arrested.
Yeah, they won't let you pull anything like that.
And you're talking about family. If you really want to see true Mardi Gras, you need to come down here to Church Point, right? Come chase you a chicken. And,
I think you need to tell people, or maybe you could save that for another one, but you might want to tell people now that you got it, to chase the chickens out of the bag, because that's a good story.
Yeah. So, I'm hoping to maybe go and film that next year, but it's not just there, man. They have things that you can do all over the place. And again, it goes back to the earlier conversation. There's always something going on.
Wayne, isn't that chicken chasing? I knew people from Gaines. You know where Gaines is?
Haven't heard of that one.
You know where the sugar mill is in Raceland?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, if you turn before you get there and you go back, one of these little swamp roads, Gaines is back in the middle in the swamp. It's south of Raceland. Yeah. So anyway, it's chicken chasing. That's where I first heard about it, because when I stayed in Thibodaux, and I would have to pass through, and this girl was telling me, "Yeah, I'm from Gaines. That's where we do the chicken chase." I'm like, "What in the heck are you talking about?"
I'm starting to have an epiphany, because a friend of mine, Norby Chavez, was from Chauvin, which is a little further down there, down the Bayou in Houma. And I belonged into a fraternity. I don't know if you knew that or not. But we used to do this little chicken game, I guess you want to call it. Chicken squares. You ever heard of that?
No, what's that?
Basically, it's kind of like gambling, but it's not basically kind of. It is gambling. You basically have a big old piece of wood out there, and you mark in sections with numbers, and you pay for a number. And it's the only time when it's okay to get shit on, because if your number gets shit on, then you actually become the winner. So. But,
I love Acadiana, I swear I do.
Well, you try to do it with cows, but you're waiting all day. The chickens, man, and I'm not going to tell you the story about the X-Lax, but anyway, because then you got to divide the money up. It just becomes a whole mess, right?
Wait, speaking of chicken chase, I don't know if y'all can see this. I got my three-piece spicy shirt.
All right.
Which anybody who knows what Popeye's chicken is, it's three-piece and a biscuit. I hope most of the audience should have heard of Popeye's by now, because they've gone national, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So
I like to say partly that's because of me.
So a friend of mine was in this band called Three Piece Spicy, which they did as an homage to something people say in New Orleans all the time. Yeah, pick me up a three-piece and a biscuit, babe.
Yep.
You want it spicy? Any other way to eat it? So I get a lot of comments on this, and it's got chickens. And on the back of it, it says cluck. That was a pretty clever little situation. So this would be the shirt that I would wear to, what's that game called, Chicken Square?
Yeah, chicken squares, they have a few different
yeah, something more colorful, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Kim Boltman had a question. She wanted to know, and I think you answered it, but I'm going to ask anyway, because I guess I wasn't paying attention. Do you take the roux off the heat before it reaches the color you want? And will it continue to cook? And do you keep stirring it even though you've taken it off the heat?
Well, definitely you want to keep stirring it. So when I take this off the heat, I'm going to put it in a pan. And you can see it's smoking, right? That means it's hot. So Just telling you.
Thank you.
But we're reaching that point where it's almost about to burn, and that's why I know I keep saying that, but you just gotta keep watching. I think some of that might be this cooking surface that I'm playing with, but can you see how it's becoming? It's a really dark caramel color.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm almost to where I want it, and it's getting there. I don't know if you can see. This has shine in it, but that's where we were earlier. So you can see I'm darker than where we were.
And that's been 40 minutes of cooking.
Yeah, that's what I said. It takes a long time, man. And again, I know people are pressed for time, and one of the things I want to do is show you how to make things easy, but I also want to show you where it came from. You know, what's the traditional way to do it? Because, you know, maybe it's a hurricane outside, because hurricane season just started, and you ain't got nothing to do, and it's hot, and you got an open flame, and you want an excuse to get away. All right.
I just happen to have an open flame sitting around during hurricanes. I keep one lit all the time just in case.
Just in case.
Well, this morning I was invited to be on the show with a few different people on how to shave. It has something to do with some marketing, right? And they're like, oh, well, how do you feel about shaving in a bucket? I'm thinking, well, it's hurricane season, so it's kind of the same thing. So that's what you have to do. And let me give you a tip, Brother Lance.
Yes,
one
please.
of the things I thought was one of the most ingenious things that I ever came up with for hurricane, is, and I'm thinking about creating a hurricane pack, is go buy a bunch of solar lights, right? You know, solar lights you put outside in the yard that you can put in the driveway, and man, those things, they'll light up your house if you bring them inside. So it's just a quick, easy way. It's cheaper than buying a ton of flashlights, and get this, Wayne Meter likes it because it's environmentally friendly, right?
So let me tell you a little story. Was it last year or the year before when we had a storm come through and the power was, remember when everybody was without power all over the place down here?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that bad of a storm, but it was enough. There was more wind than anything. And in where I live we were without power for 5.5 days. And there was, of course, you couldn't see anything, and then I went into the backyard, and I'm like, where's all those little lights coming from? And it was all of our little solar-powered lights, which we then went, just like you said, went and got them. We put a couple on the front porch because it's kind of eerie to be in this old neighborhood in pitch black. And yeah, so we did the same thing, and it worked beautifully. And it's surprising when there's no other lights around how bright they are.
Right. Well, I'm kind of out here in the country. I'm not too far from the city. I'm about 10 or 12 miles. Closer to a city named Cade. It's over here closer to New Iberia, but I am in Youngsville. Used to be the ass end of Youngsville. But everybody keeps moving out here. Youngsville is one of the fastest growing cities still in Louisiana. They just built this big multi-million-dollar sports complex for kids, and it was awesome, man. They have turf, you know, and Dawn says, well, why don't they have a swimming pool? It's South Louisiana. Let's go jump in a ditch. Okay. You can swim and catch a dinner at the same time.
So just in case anybody watching isn't clear on the practicality of the Cajun culture, you have just experienced it firsthand. Why do we need a pool when you got a ditch right there? Go cool off. And you can catch you some little crawfish or some frogs while you're in there all at once. Dinner, good to go. You got cooled off and you're ready.
Oh, yeah. We passed through Rain the other day. That's the Frog City capital. And I was saying, oh, I want me some frog legs. Have you ever had frog legs?
Oh, yeah, plenty of times. They're delicious.
They say it tastes like chicken, but to me it tastes like frog legs.
Yeah, I don't find that it tastes like chicken.
So, look,
people say that about alligator, and so what? I'm thinking sometimes they say it about crawfish because crawfish, to me, doesn't really taste like seafood. It's not. It's its own thing. So really, the only thing I think they're talking more about texture. But I also find when you have super fresh frog legs that are prepared perfectly, basically they just kind of melt away when you eat them. They're so tender.
You can fricassee up those frog legs as well. You don't have to fry them. There's different ways. And we lived in urban Texas for a little while, over there by Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to go to this place called Beaver Park, and I really liked it. And Dawn liked it too, but I think she liked it for a different reason. And part of that reason was because there was not a beaver in the world, but you'd hear little people going around saying, "Mama, look at that beaver! Look at that beaver! It's full of nutrients." And I guess they kind of look the same, but my question is, do they taste the same? So, and I know people eat a lot of nutri-rat, and it's supposed to be one of the best meats in the world, real lean, because they're strict vegetarians, right? And there's history behind the nutri-rat. Everybody knows what the nutri-rat was brought here for, right?
That's it. New Iberia. That's where it goes.
Yeah. So, and then the hurricane, they broke out. So, ever since then, you ain't getting them back, sucker. So,
I remember a few years ago, well before Katrina, when there was so many in Jefferson Parish that they were letting people hunt them, and then they were taking the skins and turning them into coats, which I had to go myself. They sold Nutra fur coats at Saks Fifth Avenue in Canal Place, and I was like, I can't believe. I went down, and sure enough, they actually had Nutra coats down at Saks Fifth Avenue because there were there were just so many. They were standing out on the side of the ditch, the canal, in Jefferson Parish, shooting them up.
that's right. Yeah, Harry Lee.
Harry Lee, uh-huh.
I liked Harry Lee. Whatever happened to old Steven Seagal? He was down there in that area for a little while.
Well, I don't know. I think they ran him off.
Yeah, I think he got into a little
He's not such a popular guy for the last 15 years, I guess.
He's tall, man. You know that?
Is he tall?
He's freaking humongous. That's what makes him so great at what he does. He does like Aikido and Hapkido. He has this leverage because that's why
he does this face.
Yeah.
He's always squinting, like he's always ready to knock somebody out. So some comments. Let's go to some comments while you're doing your finishing stir. So let's see. Nazim, he says they used to have alligator in the Everglade burger. I'm not sure what this means, but I'll just take a stab at it. He says that they used to have alligator in the Everglades burger joints. I guess that means if you were in the Everglades at a burger joint, that you could either eat alligator or see them, or maybe both. And then he says, I bet some gator would be good smothered in that roux.
Yep, it sure is.
I agree. Kim Boltman says, eco-friendly solar lights, awesome storm season tip. Thank you from Tornado Alley, which is actually where I was born and raised. In Tornado Alley, that is. And Jessica says, and Cheryl both said they've heard of Popeyes. Jessica Maynard is out in Western New York. She's the one that has Nourish Boutique.
Okay.
And Cheryl said that Popeyes just opened up in Utah, but that she hasn't been yet.
Well, let me tell you, it's not the healthiest place you want to eat.
Wow.
It'll definitely stick to your ribs. So
Popeyes isn't about being healthy. It's about 3 delicious pieces of chicken and a buttery biscuit, or 4, depending on what kind of mood I'm in.
Right. They taste good the next morning too.
Indeed.
And I learned a little trick to kind of make the butter biscuits. Is they use like a Sprite when they're mixing the dough, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to do that on the show. Show you how you make some of these butter biscuits. I call them drop biscuits.
Yeah, they do make a good biscuit. That's for sure. Everything that they make.
Now we can keep taking this further. That's up to you guys. We can stop it now.
Well, we're at about 10 minutes until the top of the hour, so I don't know where you want to.
That's good. And I'm hoping that my little plate chips will show you just how far we came. And I just made a big old mess, so no one's going to like that. I'm gonna take this off just to take it off the heat. But I'd like you to see it. How it's a chocolate color, right? probably hard to see. So I'm gonna put this
No,
on.
it looks great. I can see it.
Yeah.
That looks good on this black. But maybe you can see if I move this a little. I bought these little paint chips from the store, hoping that would actually help you maybe kind of see the color change. What do you think? Did it help? I don't know. I'm not plating food, so it should be okay.
Yeah, that's a progression of your roux, your light to your dark.
I have a quick question about that. So the shorter or longer that you cook your roux, does that change the thickening ability of it when you mix it into a dish?
I'm sorry I did not mention that, but you are exactly right. The earlier stage, when I was saying you mix it to a soup and things like that, that's going to give you more of a thickening power. The longer you burn it, the more you're going to break everything down. Or the longer you cook it, the more you're going to break everything down. But it also adds more of a nutty flavor, almost like when you caramelize something, right? It gives you that nutty flavor. Well, not the caramelize, but so yeah, the longer you have it, and that's why when you're making the gumbos, typically I like to go to a more of a darker color, and I try to jazz everything up with my andouille sausage. I often throw in whole eggs, which doesn't add flavor, but it's a cheap way to add protein. So maybe I'll save all that for the show. But again, it's just adding the texture and trying to be able to fill everybody's belly. And Dawn told me earlier before the show, she said, make sure you tell Jim Hassel that when we make the gumbo, it belongs in a bowl, just like LSU, right? So I said I'll make sure I tell him that because he likes the Arkansas Razors. But anyway, it's okay. We still love each other. But we could probably put that on some bread right now, and we'll be good to go. I would like to ask if anybody out there in the audience, there's something specific that you want to know about. Even if I don't know, I can go round up people and we can have them on the show. Things like that. Some other shows that we want to have down the line, or my friend Nate from Reve Coffee Roasters to do some cooking with this coffee, right? He actually roasts coffee. A couple other things that we're looking at doing is rice. I have some videos that I'm thinking of doing for my trailers, which is part of the fun of the show, is trying to become creative. So if anybody out there does have some extra help that they want to give to us on how to make our videos a little more spiffier, I definitely would appreciate that. And thank you for coming and sharing the love, man. Especially everybody in the audience. Nazim's always coming around. I really like that. And we were talking with Asanta Romero, who, she grew up pretty much in that area in Italy, maybe not right by Nazim, but she speaks fluent Italian, so she was talking about maybe trying to do something on the show too. So, they have a rice meal down the road. I'm going to try and get them on the show. The more that I can do, the more engagement that we can get. That's why I'm trying to get involved with Codafield, because it does two things. It helps us promote the area. It's fun to do. And it's all about just increasing the community. So, Lance, is there anything that you have special that going on in your neck of the woods? I know you've been working with several people. What do you have any call to actions or anything?
At the moment, I don't, but I do want to mention, since you brought up your friend Nate with the coffee roasting, I live about 6 blocks from a really big coffee roasting house, and on days when the wind is coming from the east, you don't even have to drink coffee. You walk outside, and with the air, with the humidity that we have today, the air is so heavy with the smell of perfectly roasted coffee that just wandering around, and you get that. I kept thinking that the nuttiness you were talking about with the roux that you get when you get it to that dark stage. So my call to action is come to New Orleans, come to Southeast Louisiana, come and check it out. There's a whole lot of things going on, and one or the other of us, or all of us, will get together. We can cook, hang out, and what you're experiencing on the show here is the same thing that you would experience in person, except you could have a beer and you could taste it while you're cooking. So that's my call to action.
All right, babe, you got anything you want to talk about?
Thank you, Lance. Yes, just encourage everyone to continue to watch, to look up things for Acadiana, for New Orleans, for Louisiana, anyone from Codafield. If they have any experience with them, or they're looking into them, please check out Codafil. You know, any French speakers, any local groups. We're just trying to promote Louisiana culture all over through food, through language, through music. We have beers, we're looking into rice, the fruits, the festivals, just everything. We love being in Louisiana, and we just like to share that.
So say something in French.
Bonjour. Bienvenue en Louisiane. You said it's French.
Close enough.
I like you say something in French.
French. Dawn did forget to tell you one thing. She's going to be on Tracy Baker's show on Wednesday, and they're going to be talking about how she got involved with her paleo diet and how it's changed her life and affected my life, of course. But and there's several things that we're all looking at. And if anybody has any specific questions or anything, like I said, from this area, what do you like? What don't you like? You know, without having feedback from you guys, we can't grow. And I just want to make sure I'm providing, you know, the most valuable content out there, and most importantly, that we're having a good time. And Lance, I do plan on coming to see you pretty soon in New Orleans again, brother.
It sounds great. Look forward to it. Thanks, guys. I had a good time again, as usual. I like this format. It just feels like what we would do. We just sit around and we talk. You'd cook, I'd cook something, maybe run to the store, whatever. It just feels right.
Cool. All right, babe. That's it.
All right. Until next time.
Till next time.
We'll see y'all later.
Share the love, baby.